This is Editing Monty coming in to say, because I didn't say this in my actual review, but if you have not read everything by Sarah J. Maas, please do not watch this video, partially because I do touch on some things that happen in Throne of Glass and Silver Flame specifically, but I'm just assuming that if you're reading Flame and Shadow, you've read everything, or you don't care that I talk about things from Silver Flames and the Throne of Glass. Specifically, I think I talk most about Queen of Shadows, but just in general, blanket spoiler warning. It is what it is. I'm not going to edit that stuff out. So just be warned, I might spoil you for those things. What is up, you guys? It is me. It is Monty, and today I am back again, once again, with the start of another video. It has been a minute since I have uploaded over here for public consumption, and between you and me, that's just how it's going to be for the rest of the foreseeable future. Yeah, the Patreon is down below if you miss me, if you really want regularly scheduled content. That's where it is these days. I'm not motivated, but for big releases, for books that I am eager to share my thoughts and opinions on, I will attempt to come over here and do standalone video reviews or maybe vlogs at some point. I don't know. Me and reading vlogs, we have a troubled history. I'm very much over reading vlogs. I have always been over reading vlogs. They are just not how I like to process books these days. I feel like they are just, honestly, I think they are sent from the devil. Between quiet as a cut, I think they are, and it's not quiet over here. I'm very loud about my disdain for the reading vlog, so I can't promise that you will get reading vlogs over here, but I do technically, allegedly, sort of kind of do them over on the Patreon. So that's where all that kind of content is. I've also been on a like a month-long Real Housewives obsession, so like that's happening over there. It's just a lot. Okay, it's life is happening over there for as little as $3 a month. So. But today we're here to talk about Miss Sarah J. Maas. There, it'll be in the background. I'll probably actually throw up the cover so it's like not so far away. But I'm here to talk about Miss Flame and Shadow because this book came out, January 30th or so? Came out towards the end of last month, and I have been avoiding BookTube ever since. Now, quite as this cut, I've actually been avoiding BookTube since the end of December. When everyone's in the year content started coming out, I was just a little burnt out from doing my own Vlogmas situation. I just ran and hide and watched everything that I could watch that was not book related. But I knew this book was coming out, and it kind of worked out for me because I was able to read this book in a complete bubble. With Sky and Breath, I had seen some things were going to happen, and with Flame and Shadow, I had no idea what was going to happen in this book. I had no idea what was going to happen, and that could have impacted how much I enjoyed the book. And I also just got to read this book at my own pace. I didn't read this book seeing my timeline filling up with Sky and Breath videos or, Flame and Shadow videos in this case. Like, I didn't see Sarah videos overtaking my timeline. I didn't see people's thoughts and opinions, overtaking the Instagram stories. I was just living in my own world, my little housewife bubble, and getting to read this little fantasy book about my little fae friends. And you know what? I loved it. I'm gagged. I'm gagged. Now, if you've been here with any, length of time, and maybe you haven't, maybe you have, House of Earth and Blood was my first Sarah J. Maas book. And I read the book on live reading sprints every day for 5 days. I tuned in and I said, we're doing it, guys. We're going to read this book together. We're going to do a live buddy read situation. And for 5 days, it was like me and 15 people. Maybe that might have been very generous, but me and a small handful of people were allegedly reading this book. It was kind of an introduction to like the larger BookTube community. Through that book, I talked to, I think it was Mayana for the first time, Mina for the first time, Chandler for the first time. Like, that book was really my gateway to a lot of people that I talked to, sort of, kind of, to this day, a little bit. I'm not a good talker. Don't ask me to text you back, but. It was my kind of gateway into the community, and I didn't really love that book. I read the book coming off of Lady Midnight, and I felt that they were just a little bit too similar in the fact that like they were fantasy murder mysteries, and I don't really feel like House of Earth and Blood is a good murder mystery. It was kind of bland, and Sarah J. Maas kind of throws you in there in the middle of nowhere with nothing to hold on to. After that experience, I went, and a couple years later, I read the entirety of the Throne of Glass series, and I still think that it's Sarah's best work. She was cooking, she was in the kitchen, she was doing what she needed to do. Queen of Shadows through Empire of Storms. No, Queen of Shadows. Queen of Shadows is still like her best book. Like she ain't never topped Queen of Shadows. If I had to like pick between Queen of Shadows and Silver Flames, my girl Nesta, like I would probably still have to give it to Queen of Shadows. Like she's just that girl. She is just that girl. So Throne of Glass, I think, is the best of her work. And then when she got into the Little Akatar series, I do think that that's kind of where public perception of Miss Sarah changed a little bit into like the fairy smut person. And it's not to say that there wasn't fairy smut in the Throne of Glass books, because I do think that whatever happened at Empire of Storms with the sex over there is hotter than anything that was happening in A Court of Mist and Fury, and it might be a little bit more inappropriate in in Throne of Glass. Although the characters there are also of age. She's like 19 at that point, maybe even 20. And the love interest of the book is definitely old. But still, like that was, I'll give you, that was maybe not the best place. Although even there, it was more metaphors and not. It was definitely not no fucking Silver Flames. Silver Flame. I don't think Silver Flames held her case in the sort of like fairy smut perception, but there's also, I think, a lot of deep emotional storylines happening in Silver Flames that is overlooked by the throat goading of Miss Nesta. Was it Archeron? She also Archeron? Miss Nesta. So not to say that you can't be, duality, but still, I think it's overshadowed. And I do think that the perception of the Akatar books has overshadowed Sarah herself as an artist, and not as an artist. What am I doing? As an author. And I think that kind of played into expectations for the first couple of Crescent City books. And so it definitely didn't help not Silver Flames, Sky and Breath. I think Silver Flames came out and then Sky and Breath. Is that how that worked? I don't remember. Time is wibbly wobbly. I don't know anything. But even so, I don't think that seeing what was happening, like the intimate moments in the Akatar books and not frequent, but how willing Sarah seemed to be to go there, and then how chaste these books seemed, I do feel like there was some backlash there from some corners of the Sarah J. Maas universe. And having finished Flame and Shadow, I really do think that Crescent City is a fantasy series first and a romance series kind of second. Like, the romance is there. There's a clear romantic through line. But I do think that Sarah J. Maas is very aware of what people think of her as an author and what they expect from her to deliver. And I think that she's just not interested in delivering that. And I think that it's very clear. At least I don't think she's wanting to deliver that in the way that people expect her to. I think that Silver Flames was written the way that it was, because if you go, I think it was for like the tour edition of that book, there was a talk that she did, and I'm pretty sure it was there, but she might have said it other places as well, that like she extending the Court of Thorns and Roses series necessarily wasn't a plan, and that Silver Flames kind of started as just like personal fan fiction for herself. Like she was just writing these things. And I think that some of the throat goatiness of that book existed because it was a little, this is just for my personal enjoyment. And if you're just writing something for yourself, like, sure, you can do that. But with Crescent City series, and specifically with, Flame and Shadow, I think that there was a clear concerted effort to make this like just a fantasy book, like for the fantasy girlies. And while I have famously also said that I'm not a fantasy girly, I do appreciate a good fantasy. I do appreciate when fantasy is at the forefront of my fantasy book. And I think that Flame and Shadow really delivered that. Flame and Shadow to me reminded me of the fun that I had during the highest high moments of the Throne of Glass books. It did not remind me necessarily of the Akatar books, despite the callbacks to that. It just didn't. Like, it didn't go there. And I think that it worked for me. There was something about it that worked. Now, if we're going to talk about things that did not work for me, I don't think that Flame and Shadow really succeeded with balancing all of the perspectives that we had. Now, it was better than in Sky and Breath, because in Sky and Breath, you had a situation where we had all these different perspectives, Hunt and Bryce and Ethan and Therian and Rune, and all of these characters are sort of the Hind. They're all going towards the same thing. Like, they're all working toward the same goal. Initially finding, what's her name, Sophie. They're all trying to find Sophie, but none of them are talking to each other about going after Sophie, about finding this person. So it just felt like very repetitive and very bland. and it just didn't work. And so much of the book just didn't work because we were doing the same thing in everybody's perspective, but nobody was talking to each other. There was no plan formulating for so much of that book. Here we have just as many perspectives, but now they are talking to each other. Some of them are linked up in a similar space and time, so it doesn't feel as disparate, as spread out. But I felt that some of the time we were with those characters was really taking away from Bryce. And I really, at least for part one of this book, I would have really just liked to have dug down with Bryce and Nesta, because Bryce and Nesta and Asriel, they were doing some real interesting shit. Like, that was an interesting little trio of characters, and I really appreciated. Now, I'm a Nesta girly, so like, I don't know what to tell you, but I really appreciated that Pharaoh was not present, the Restan was not present, because he's a whole garbage human. Or Faye, my bad, but I don't like Restan. Pharaoh could take her or leave her. So I appreciated. I mean, I wished Cassian could have been there, but you know, I'm okay with Asriel. Asriel, he added to these moments, but with Bryce and Nesta and Asriel happening in Prithian, I was eating it up. I didn't care that we were in these tunnels forever. I mean, I kind of did a little bit, but like in retrospect, it's not that deep. So like as repetitive and like boring maybe as these tunnel scenes could have been, I didn't care. Like I was willing to go for it. You know, I was willing to play along, if you will. So, but I wanted to stay there because I kept feeling like we were getting pulled out of there to go be with Hunt or Rune, who are locked in a basement, being tortured by the Asteri. And I didn't care. Like, you're not ever going to get me to care about Hunt Althazar because, again, like, I don't think that man washes his ass. So, like, when he was not reveling, but when he was, you know, soiling himself in this dungeon and wading through piss and shit, I was like, this is your natural habitat. Like, this is your natural habitat, Hunt. Like, I don't think you're that upset about it. And then when Rune was trying to get him to, like, bite off his hand so they could escape their shackles, I was like, why not? Like, why not? Like, you've already established that, like, you can just grow these things back. You know, it's going to take a minute, but, like, if it's going to grow back, just bite it off. You know what I mean? Like, and Hunt just seemed, like, horrified at the idea. And it just felt a little bit silly to me. Hunt as a character, to me, just feels a little bit silly. And part of that's not fair. I do think that there is a nuance to Hunt's character that's definitely not appreciated by Bryce. Like, Bryce kind of underplays a lot of the trauma that we're supposed to see from Hunt and the things that he's carrying, because Hunt was around the last time that they went up against, you know, the Asteri or whatever, and they tried to overthrow people, and like he has seen rebellion fail, and he's seen the consequences of that failing, and I think that that is often minimized by Bryce in the way that she is just so reckless. Like, I think that and I was not gonna lie, I was living for it in this. Like, there's something about Bryce in this book that she was not giving me Aelin. I do think that Aelin is a little bit smarter in my recollection than Bryce is, but there was just something about that, just like cavalier nature. She was like, why not? And I think that you know, once you have found out that the Asteri are here to just like drain your magic and consume you, and they're holding you back, I do think that at a certain point, like, Hunt, I understand that you have this trauma. I understand that you're doing this, but that's not what we need to hear right now. Like, I was like, Hunt was not offering anything that we needed to hear, and wasn't minimizing, and was it toxic? Yes, it was. But again, I don't support them. I don't support their relationship. I don't support them being mates. I don't like this man. So while it was very shitty of Bryce, in that moment, not to make a Housewives reference, but I really did feel like maybe I don't have morals. Maybe I was, you know, when, who was it? Was it Giselle who says, I don't like Wendy? I don't care that Wendy got a drink thrown on her and a purse thrown in her direction, because I don't like Wendy. And that was really fucked up of her, and Giselle was wrong for that. But in this moment, I was Giselle. I was Giselle Bryant, and I was like, I don't like you, Hunt. So should Bryce be throwing this in your face? Should she be minimizing your thoughts and feelings about this? No, she shouldn't. But at the same time, like, it is what it is at this point. Like, you have no other option. Like, the other option would just be to go back to living in your city. And you can't even do that because you've already done too much. This is the other problem. When he was doing this in Sky and Breath, they could kind of get away with it. You know, they hadn't done anything. But at this point, you have actively already moved against the Asteri. You know, like, you have already invaded the Crystal Palace and tried to do things, and you sent her to a whole other dimension. So at this point, you have taken one too many steps. Like, you can't go back to the penthouse and go back to being a police officer. That's the other reason I don't like this man. This man's a whole cop. You can't go back to being a police officer and just living your normal, like, you can't do that. So at this point, Hunt, you've already taken too many steps along Bryce's yellow brick road of foolishness to continue to raise the same concerns. Like, at this point, you just got to know that, like, you're raising things that are not going to be addressed, that she is not going to fuck with you on, and it's a waste of breath at this point. So he is a very valid person, you know, a very valid angel, if you will. But at the same time, like he wasn't giving anything that was necessary or needed or I cared about. And quiet as it's kept, I would have much rather that he died in the last book and Bryce found out that her actual true mate was Cormac, because I liked Cormac. Cormac was down for the cause. He was, you know, down to do what needed to be done. And Hunt, quiet as it's kept, just wasn't. He was just not ready to do that. As much as he claimed to want to support Bryce and be there for Bryce and be protective and an alpha hole, when the cards were on the table, he was always just like, even though I've already followed you down this yellow book road of foolishness, I need you to understand I don't really want to do this. I don't really think that we should be doing that. Like, you don't understand how bad it can get. And I think that at this point she kind of can. You know, like her friend was ripped apart and dead. As much as I don't think that she was really grieving in that first book and didn't really give two fucks that Danica was dead, at this point we spent two books, you know, getting to the bottom of Danica, finding out all about Danica's life story. So at this point, once we've known all this, we just got to keep moving forward. I cared about Lydia a lot more in this book than I did in Sky and Breath. I didn't think that I would really care about her after we kind of got the revelation of who she was, and her and Rune were not really in the best place. But the more we learned about her in this one and the more we got to see her, I just really started to like her. She was also one of the few characters that had any kind of sense. She was giving... Once Nesta left after part one, Lydia, I think, provided that energy that Nesta was giving Bryce in the beginning, and it just worked. It started to work. They're not the same character. They have very different, you know, arcs and journeys that they've gone on, but there was something about it that I think really clicked, and I think that it worked, and it made for an interesting reading experience. Rune, I've always liked Rune. I'm not gonna be mad at Rune. Therian, I continue to hate. Hate is a strong word a little bit, but I just don't care about him. I didn't care about him necessarily in Sky and Breath, but obviously I was supposed to care about him in this one, and I didn't. I felt that, again, kind of like Hunt, he was kind of a wet blanket for a lot of his time in this book, and I get it. I understand he's made a lot of sacrifices, and he's, you know, addicted to venom. He has a lot going on, but it's just, a lot of it was of his own making, and it's just, I'm like, you made your bed, now you gotta lie in it, dude. Like, you wanted to do all of this, you wanted to, you know, fuck that little fairy princess and then run away, and now you're just like being a gladiator in the arena, and you're not really good at that either. And your friends, I don't know if I guess they kind of needed him because he was able to talk to the Ocean Queen and negotiate. But the only reason that I came around on Therian was because he eventually got to marry, who was it, Flynn's sister, or was it Declan's? He married one of the Fae sisters that was hiding out with Cormac's daddy, because Cormac's daddy was a whole nut job. So he got to marry her, and I like her a lot. I only want to continue in Crescent City so that Therian can be murdered and we get to follow her. Like, she was the moment. She was a ray of sunshine in a dark, dark wood. So I really like her as a character, even though I don't remember her name at all, but I like her a lot. Who else is in this? Ethan and Hypaxia. I really liked how their dynamic towards the end when they were trying to discover the vaccine, the antidote to whatever parasite the Asteria had put in the water source to, like, chop off the knees of all of our lovely creatures, I guess, species of Midgard. I really appreciated the dynamic that they had there. I liked getting to see Ethan come into his own. I just always liked him. Like, I liked him in the last one when I thought he was a twink getting railroaded, getting gangbanged in the frat house. And I still like him in this one where he's, you know, he's like a fully grown up twink. You know, he's making decisions. He's the alpha. He's the prime Ethan. Again, one of the only reasons I would want to continue on in this book, in this world, is to see prime Ethan. Like, come on. And he got ice powers. Like, come on. You can't do this to me. Also, Lydia has fire powers. Lydia is definitely related to my fire-breathing bitch queen, Aelin. Like, she is definitely a long-lost Galathinian. Like, come on now. Come on. Like, this is the other problem I have with this book, is that for all of the allusions and the callbacks to fucking Terrasen, we didn't get to see none of them hoes show up. None of them hoes showed up. And I was just like, and I stand by this. I mean, I'm happy that this book did not come to the Prithians, the Illyrian warriors are going to come and save the day. I like that was not the direction this book went in. I liked that Bryce and Nesta and Asriel were together, and then she was like, bye bitches, and she just kind of dipped out on them and stole the little dagger. Like, I like that that's how that was, and it wasn't like, oh, the people of Prithian and the people of Midgard are going to have to come together. And I even liked that nobody from Midgard, I mean, I guess technically Bryce sent her siblings to Prithian, not her siblings, her parents. She sent her parents to Prithian and left her like half brother. That was really fucked up. That was fucked up. But at this point, I don't know. Like Bryce, Bryce has always moved a little bit fishy, so you got to see that coming. But I also liked that nobody from, like, not hordes of people from Midgard went through the portal into Prithian, and then nobody from Prithian came, hordes of them came through. I really liked that was not how the prophecy or whatever was going to happen came to be. I liked that was not how we came to the final battle, because I thought that would have been a little bit foolish to see all of our Prithian characters come to save the day. As incompetent and as reckless as Bryce was, I really did like that she and her core group of people that we've been following in Crescent City did have to do this. But I also will say that this also made it feel like the crossover moment was maybe not organic. It did kind of feel like a marketing decision. And it felt like a very weird marketing decision because so many people were upset at the lead up to this book that Sarah was saying, she was posting on her Instagram quotes from Nesta in this book, or revealing that Rhysand, was mentioned at the end of the lot. Like, people were very up in arms that was like this massive spoiler. And I think for how it all played out and the actual role that Prithian played in how Midgard came to save themselves was so minimal that, like, you could have marketed this book without it. And I don't know if it needed, I guess technically for, how they killed everybody, like, okay, yeah, I guess they needed to go to Prithian. But I don't know. There's something about it that I don't know. I don't know. It just, but I'm also like a Nesta fan, so like I just wanted more Nesta. But it's fine. I liked it. I also liked when, even though it was fucked up, when Bryce went to the Northern Rift and opened the portal for the first time, and it went to Nesta's study. I liked that was I was like, yes, Nesta's back. I didn't care there was a brief. I liked the negotiation. Was it fucked up? Yes, it was. But I also feel like, I don't know, like, was it fucked up that she didn't send her little half brother? Yeah, it was, but I knew they were coming back, so like I wasn't mad at it. Like, I didn't, like, Sarah J. Maas is not the kind of author who is like, I'm going to write a final book and our heroes are going to lose. Like, if the heroes had lost, I probably would be more upset. But I knew the heroes were going to win. I knew the family was going to be reunited. So, like, I wasn't super upset at that decision. And also, I was just happy to see Nesta back because I had been pouting since she had left. And so I was happy to see her again. And I like that Rhys's dumbass was, like, trying to get there. And his shadows were closing in. And he was going to, I don't know, fucking yell at Bryce. Like, Bryce could take him. Bryce could take him down. I'm sorry. Fuck little Rhysand and his little bitchy ways or whatever. Like, she could take him. She could just shatter him with her pinky. So, didn't care about that. What else? Okay. We have to talk about the end of this book. So, we've seen Bryce. She's gone on these missions. She has gone to Prithian. She has taken the dagger. She has, brought the dagger back. She has the dagger. She has the star sword. She has the mask. So she has like power over. She has the horn in her back. Like, she has as many of the made objects as you can kind of have in one place. She ain't got the cauldron, I guess, but she has a lot of the made objects. She is, powering herself up. She has taken the magic that her ancestors left for her in Prithian. She has found it in Midgard, kind of sort of. So she's doing what needed to be done. She has all the magic. She has, at this point, the Autumn King is dead. Rune killed him and bowed before Bryce as the new queen of the Fae. Love that. The Avalon guy, Cormac's daddy, he's dead and gone. Love that the most. That was a joy to behold. The other islands out there around the little misty part, they're raised. Like, things are happening in Midgard. And she's like, time to go take on the Asteri. She's broadcast that, we can kill the archangels. It's very easy to kill the archangels. Look, I killed an archangel. Hunt killed an archangel. She got the humans on her side. The humans know this is their one and only shot. She got her core team of, I wouldn't say baddies, because again, like, some of these people are a little bit sad. You have Ethan, who went on a journey to the Under King, and he got this little magic bullet of all the second light from those who had crossed over. So we got a magic bullet, literally, We have Ethan also being the Prime, because before he went to the Under King, he went to go talk to the Prime, and Sabine's dumbass went and killed that old man, her daddy. She killed her old daddy. That was fucked up. And then sucked in his second light because she's just a crazy person. But then he kills Sabine. Love that. Love that he got his little ice powers. So he's running to go to the Asteri. All of this I think is excellent. All of this I'm having a fun time. Like, this is really, I thought, where the different perspectives were cooking. In the first part, it just felt very disparate and it wasn't really working. And then in part two, you kind of see the plan coming together, but we weren't really quite sure what the plan was going to be. So when we were in the third part, like, we were finally cooking with some gasoline. And it really did feel like we were back in prime Throne of Glass territory. Like, we were with Aelin and Rowan and Dorian and Kale, and they were going to the Glass Palace, and they were gonna fuck shit up. They had Manon. They were gonna we were really gonna do some shit. Like, this is, again, it was like back there. It wasn't quite as good. Like, House of Flame and Shadow is definitely in the top 10 best Sarah J. Maas books, but it's near the bottom. It's like 8 or 9. It's like 8, 9, 10. It's down there. But still, it is in the conversation, which the rest of the Crescent City books cannot say. They just can't do it. I'm sorry. The other two books do not hold a candle. They're necessary. They are stepping stones. You know, it's building blocks. But finally here, I think that Sarah J. Maas was back in her bag, and she was ready to write fantasy, and or at least solidify that she's writing fantasy. I still think that with House, Earth, and Blood and Sky and Breath, I had these expectations that she was writing more of a romancy moment. And here, it just finally, everything clicked into place. Like, no, that's not really the aim of this. Is there more of a romance than other fantasy books? Yes. But also, I will say, if the fantasy romance category comes back, this book right here, Miss Flame and Shadow, does not deserve to be in the fantasy romance category. It deserves to be there. It deserves to beat out Brandy Sandy's, Truth Knights, Knights of Truth, Knights of Wind, Stormlight Book 5. Haven't read it. Might read it by the end of the year. But this book, sorry, it deserves to be in the conversation. Sarah J. Maas deserves a seat at the little round table. Is she writing fantasy on the likes of, Rebecca Kwong? Or even, she's definitely writing better than Brandy, in my opinion. But no, like, it's different. I can accept that. But she deserves to be at the fantasy round table. Fuck this little romantasy. It feels like very much like a kiddie table, which is no shade to those authors. Those authors should also be writing really good books. But, like, this is a fantasy book. So we are finally at the end, and we find out the first Asteri that she battles, that nothing is low-key a black hole. And I said, okay, that makes sense. Like, nothing, a black hole, that's where you're going to send them. That's where the portal's going to go. I was really on board for them getting it sent into a black hole. I didn't think that was really foolish when it was the first one. Then she gets back to the Glass Palace. I don't think it was actually the Glass Palace, but the Asteri Palace. And she gets back there, and the other Asteri are there, and they're fighting each other, and, it's going down. It's a battle moment. I don't really care about battle moments, but it's a battle. And we find out that if she takes out the first light core that the Asteri are feeding on, it will also destroy Midgard, because it'll suck Midgard into a black hole, and everybody on Midgard will die. And that doesn't feel too good. And so I was kind of in a position where I was like, well, maybe we're not going to destroy this first light core after all. Like, maybe we're going to have to do something else. What that something else is going to be, I wasn't too sure. I didn't know what we were going to do, but I was like, maybe we're not doing this after all. So when she destroyed the first light core, I was kind of gagged, not going to lie. I was like, okay, she's going to kill everybody on Midgard. When it became a battle of the dueling black holes, it was a little unserious for me. And then when Bryce got sucked into the black hole, that was also a little bit unserious for me. And I knew, because, again, like, Sarah J. Maas is not a subtle person. I knew that this, through love, all is possible bullshit was going to happen, because we'd already had the light it up moment. We already had her lighting it up all over the place. She was lighting it up in the cave. She was lighting it up when she got back from the cave. Bryce had been lighting it up. Okay. When Danica told her to light it up, she's been lighting it up. Okay. She said, I am the star. I am a star. I will be the star. And she'd been using her star powers left, right, and center. Okay. She had bloody nose. She was using that star power so much. She had stardust in her veins. She was using that star power so much. So the dueling black hole, she gets sucked into the black hole. I said, okay, I know. And I was upset. I said, I know it's going to be fucking stupid, but love is going to save this bitch. And what happened? Love saved this bitch. But here's where we get going. So prior to this, we find out that the Asteri have, like, created these mechanized robot situations to like fight on their behalf. And using the power of the mask. This was so like this is it was very unserious, but at the same time, like it was just fun. Like it was fun. I was having my best life reading this, even though I was like, this is a little silly. But using the power of the mask, she has, control over death, and she was able to raise the fallen soldiers from the wings that the Asteri have, like the fallen angels from the first rebellion or whatever. She was able to reanimate them and put their souls in the bodies of these mechanized suits. So that was very unserious. And it was through these mechanized suits that Hunt was able to go into the portal or into the black hole and kind of grab hold of Bryce and pull her toward the black hole that everybody was keeping open by blasting their magic at the hole, which felt a little bit unserious. But I was like, I'm gonna take it. Like, I will take this like loose prophecy of, the knife and the dagger bringing everyone together, and she used the knife and the dagger to open this hole, and then everybody's magic from, the fire and the ice and the whatever, the various species using them. I was like, okay, sure. Like in a fantasy book, and you have prophecies and fall, like some dumb shit's gonna happen, and I will readily accept the dumb shit is gonna happen. Like Jade Legacy, some deeply unserious things happen in that book as well, and I was still able to give it 5 out of 5 stars. So, like deeply unserious things can happen in Jade. Like another example, Fonda Lee is an author I would not put in the same, like on the same level, who's like operating and writing wise as Sarah J. Maas. But Fonda Lee and Sarah J. Maas, I think they'll have a very interesting conversation. I think that would be a very interesting fantasy roundtable. Put her at the table. Just do it. I think we could do it. But even in a no notes book like Jade Legacy that I have, some deeply unserious things happen in that book. And so when this final act was happening, and it was also giving deeply unserious, I can't fault it, because I do think that it worked within the context that Sarah had constructed, and it was just fun. Like I was having a good time. I can't say that I wasn't, even if I was annoyed, even if I thought it was silly, it was still a good time. So we're seeing the hole is open. We finally get Bryce out. The black hole closes. The Asteri are gone, but Bryce is dead. And it's here that Jessica, who's been around since the first book and is Bryce's former boss, she decides that she is finally willing to die because she's been around for 15,000 years since the Asteri first came to the planet. And she used to be a human, and now she's not quite human, but she's kind of cursed from one of the Prince of Hell. Side note, Hunt is also a Prince of Hell. That was interesting. Don't know if it was necessary, but it was interesting. And so she decides to swap her life for Bryce's life, which was fine. I don't know if I needed Bryce to come back from the dead quite as it's kept, because it was kind of the conclusion and I didn't really need it. But I was fine with it. It was whatever. And so Jessica, she dies, and she's like, yeah, I'm here to swap places with you because, I've lived long enough, and now it's your turn to go and live and take care of things, and I've set you up. This is another thing. Like, Bryce always got someone that's gonna set her up. Jessica leaves her business, she leaves her money, she leaves her everything. Just like fucking Danica left her secret apartment, left her money, left her everything. Bryce, she's a premier sugar baby. Okay, she's a premier sugar baby, and now she's queen of the Fae. Although she's about to abolish the monarchy so they can go and be like in the Fae Senate or whatever. I don't care. She can do whatever she want to do. Have a good time. She has like a final conversation with Nesta where she returns the mask and the dagger, and she also gives Nesta the Star Sword. And this is the part of the story that I have some issues with, because when Silver Flames was announced, I was head over heels, and I was low-key like, okay, bet we're getting a Nesta trilogy, but we're not getting a Nesta trilogy. We got a Nesta book, and the book 8 down, definitely top two book. I don't know if it's Queen of Shadows is number 1 and then Silver Flames, or Silver Flames and Queen, but she rivaling. Okay, Nesta is just that girl. She's that bitch. She's always gonna be the one. Since Akatar, she's been the one. Never in my life have I hated that woman, because she is just that girl. She is the best person that Sarah J. Maas has ever put pen to paper on. I could argue that she's the most nuanced character that she has ever attempted to write, and I think that she is just always utterly fascinating. Some people have like asked if she had like a personality transplant in this book, and I feel like no. I feel like the answer to the question is no. Nesta at the end of Silver Flames is, a different person than she was for most of the series, and I just feel like the person she was at the end of Silver Flames is present and accounted for here, while also remaining cool to people that she doesn't know. Like, it just makes sense for her to like not trust these people who are popping in from fucking Midgard. But at the end of the book, Nesta is in control of the Soul Sword. And it's also very clear through most of this book that Nesta, even though she kind of like gives up most of her power at the end of Silver Flames, spoiler alert, I guess, for Silver Flames, she's still like crucial to whatever's happening over there in Prithian. And so it just feels very strange to me that going forward, it is not a Nesta series that we are getting out of the new ACOTAR books. Like, as that series continues, it boggles my mind how Nesta could not be the central focus of whatever those books are. Like, what are we doing? Like, if we're really going to be deep in the fantasy bag, how is she not the central focus? And so it does make me think that those books are going to continue to be, like, that series is going to be the fantasy romance series that she writes. And while her other books are going to have romance in them, they're not going to be to the degree that they are over there, because there is no way that Nesta could be this all-powerful person with all of these artifacts and these connections to all these made things. And I guess you could say that Elaine was also made by the Cauldron, and so I guess like Elaine may also be able to do some of the things that Nesta does, but Elaine just has no interest in them the way that Nesta does after the journey that she goes on in Silver Flames and in trying to become, an Illyrian soldier or whatever, with her own, trio. It's just interesting. It's just interesting to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. I want more for Nesta, but I guess that's a topic for a different conversation. Here with Miss Flame and Shadow, she was just that girl. 10 out of 10, no note. I mean, I do have notes because there were some deeply unserious things that happened in this book, but on the whole, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. It's the best time that I've had with the Sarah J. Maas book since Silver Flames. And I don't know, like, I was just kicking my feet and giggling, even at the times where I was like, bitch, be for real. Like, even when I was like, Sarah, please come to the carpet. Even in those moments, like, there was always something around the corner that I was having a good time with. I read it very quickly. I read it in the course of like 2 days. I was listening to the audio. So that does help a little bit because I was able to read the book while I was at work, when I would have not had time to read a physical book. But still, like, I had a good time. I did not expect to. I gave the first 2 books in the series 2 stars, and Sarah just came in at the end and she hit a home run as far as I'm concerned. So 5 out of 5 stars. I'm going to round up. I'm going to do it. Like, would I have liked to see like tangible Terracent? Yes. I liked the connections that we got to Terracent. It does make me think that we are not done. We're not done on fucking Terracent, but I don't think we're really going to go back there the way that we're going back to Prithian. And that's kind of sad to me, because I do like the characters on Terracent a little bit more as a whole, like as a group, but I'm never going to be mad to see more Nesta. So whenever Sarah J. Maas puts out another book, it will be joining the Sarah J. Maas shelf. So I love that for me personally. I love that for y'all. If you've read this book, let me know down below what you thought of it. Was this your first series by Sarah? Have you been a Sarah person, the entirety of the time? All of those things. But I'm going to go. I'll see you guys again in another video, whenever that happens to be. But until then, and until next time.